Was this something you and Eric had talked about, previously, like if there was an opening, you'd be interested, or did he reach out to you, or how did this all come together?
Oh, hold on one second.
I got you. Sorry about that, but it was mutual. We are, as y'all know, that I was coaching at Fayetteville High School. It's right across the street. So we had the ability to be able to come over and watch practice a lot, and build a relationship with Coach Musselman and myself. And we just talked in passing about it. Then the opening opportunity happened. I reached out to him to show that I was interested in it. That position was then filled, and then he doubled back and came at me and was like, "Hey, I have another opening," and that's kind of how it came about. And I've always been a fan of Muss. I'm a Razorback, alum, fan through and through. If I wasn't part of the staff, I still would be coming to practice, still supporting the Razorbacks, and still pointing to these young student athletes. So it was a dream come true, and I'm very happy to be back in the position that I am right now.
You're talking about when Earl left that opening, and then this other one. And
Yes.
then just what does it mean to you to be working at the UA, where obviously you were a great player?
But there's no place I'd rather be than working here with these guys, and I'm very excited to join Coach Musselman's staff, and I'm gonna pour all my heart and effort into matching his intensity, and I think if I do that, we have a really good opportunity to be very successful here.
Hey, Ronnie, normally we tell a new hire welcome to Arkansas, but you've been in your backyard the whole time.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about recruiting. The 4-year player is a dinosaur now, gone that way. It's really about players coming in and out, transient basketball, and you having played at all levels and excelled at all levels. What do you bring to the table as far as reaching out and relating to the mindset of the young players the way it is today?
Well, I think it's a lot of different dynamics. I was blessed to have the opportunity to play in the NBA for a number of years. So I feel like I have an eye for talent. I feel like I have the eye for people who have, phenomenal work ethic, playing alongside of great athletes, and having to have that same trait to stay in the NBA. And, just to be in high school basketball and be on the other side, in the grassroots AAU side, is, able to see a lot of, young student athletes, pick their game, pick their brains, as a high school coach and AAU coach, just now I'm on the other side. And, I don't think the 4-year player is extinct. I think that's part of the game is being able to see a player, develop him, and get him to where you need to get to help your team out, and hopefully one day make it to the next level. One thing that stands out in my mind is it was a no-brainer to come join the staff is Coach Musselman's attention to detail, his player development. Example, you look at Moses Moody, what he was ranked when he finished his senior year as a high school student athlete, and his junior year, and then he comes at Arkansas and he progresses over the span. Not saying that anything away from his work ethic, because Moses probably worked his butt off, but he improved because of the attention to detail. So that's one of the things that I excel in. I was able to play for some excellent coaches in the NBA, and Coach Sloan and Coach Thibodeau, Coach Woodson, Scotty Brooks, Lionel Hollins, Kevin McHale, you can go down the list, and played for Stan Heath, was a really, really good coach as well. So I had some good mentors, and, plan to learn a lot from Coach Musselman and this staff, because they have a lot of NBA experience. And I'm just going to try to pour those in these young student athletes and the high school guys that we bring in.
Follow-up question to that. You talked about some NBA names. I understand, as I know it, obviously your Arkansas ties, everyone knows that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also NBA ties, only with you, but your dad, that go back to Eric Musselman and his dad, who coached the NBA, and other coaches. Can you talk a little bit about some of those relationships?
Well, my dad did play for Coach Musselman's father, I didn't have the opportunity to meet him or don't remember my dad playing much in the NBA. But, as growing up as a young kid and as a young adult, I'm starting to meet the people that my dad had connections with, not only in the high school ranks, the college ranks, but the professional ranks. And it's carried over to my career. The relationships I've had in high school, the relationships I've had in college, the relationships I had in the pros. And so it's coming full circle, being able to know GMs, being able to know head coaches of the NBA, head scouts, and be able to pick their brain about what they're looking for, and being able to pour that into our players, and tell these young student athletes coming out of high school, what it takes to make it to the next level.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks, Evan.
Nate Allen.
Ronnie, just as far as relationships, how do you feel strongly you are with the high school coaches and AAU coaches, from the experience you've had both in Arkansas and surrounding states?
I think I have pretty good relationships. I know a lot of people, it was the 5A West back then, but, 6A, 7A might not like me as much, my time at Fayetteville, but I think we have a pretty good relationship. I think I have relationships with a lot of people throughout the state of Arkansas because I did work on the other side of not only high school basketball, but AAU basketball. And with that being said, if you follow AAU basketball, the Nike EYBL is one of the top premier elite circuits. And so being able to travel around the United States, see these guys playing at a high level, having relationships with the coaches, meeting the players, meeting high school coaches throughout my time coaching high school, I think it goes a long way. And I think that, being at Arkansas carries a lot of weight. Being under Coach Eric Musselman carries a lot of weight. It can't be a fluke to make it to Elite Eight. And his track record speaks for itself. And so I think a lot of people, it's been kind of crazy, is a lot of people have reached out to me about, my current job and current players. And, it's making my job, I wouldn't say easy, but it's kind of like throwing fuel in the fire because it's only making me want to grind and work a little bit harder to make sure I get this right on the first time around.
And just how cooperative do you all have to be as far as, you're working with other assistants and trading evaluations and all that, as far as, who decides on recruiting and who you take and who you don't?
Well, at the end of the day, we all have the same goal. We're trying to win a national championship here. And you have to be as strong as your weakest link. And so being on staff, you see how hard Coach Musselman, prepares, his attention to detail when coming up with the practice plan, his attention to detail on the court, how hard these student athletes practice and buy into his system. Like, you would be a crazy person not to try to match that same intensity. Like if you have a heartbeat or a pulse, like it has to hype you up with trying to match his intensity. You guys see how Coach Musselman is on the sideline, getting after the players, getting after the refs, getting the fans involved. That's the same way he is in practice. That's the same way in his preparation. So for us as a staff, we've got to match his intensity and his attention to detail and his passion. And from a guy that's from the university, from the state of Arkansas, from Fayetteville, that went to the university, it means a lot to me to make sure this works out, to make sure that we're having the best players and to putting the best product on the floor to represent the state of Arkansas and the University of Arkansas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trey Biddy.
Hey, Ronnie, congratulations on your new position. Hey, I was curious. I know you can't comment on specific recruits, but this is a pretty unique year inside the state. And just wondering if you could comment on your approach to some of these guys. I know a couple of high-profile guys aren't committed yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like anything in life, people have options. But for us, we have to do our due diligence. We have to work extremely hard as we possibly can. There's a realization that you can't get every player in the country. You can't get every top player in the state. But I can sleep at night knowing that everybody on this staff, including myself, are going to do everything that we possibly can to try to get all the top players in the country, the top players in the state. It's a unique time in the state of Arkansas. There hasn't been probably this much talent, back to back years in a long, long time. So, we've got to do the best we possibly can on this recruiting trail. But the biggest thing for us is we still got to take care of the guys that are here. We've got to continue to pour into these guys that are here in the gym right now, making sure that they're developing, make sure they're taking care of their body, make sure they're getting stronger, make sure they're getting better on their weaknesses and polishing up on their strengths. Because if we're only focused on the outside guys and the other guys, it's not going to be as attractive to come to the University of Arkansas if we don't come back stronger than we did last year when we had that good Elite Eight run. So it goes hand in hand, working the guys here, but also putting out forth the effort in state and across the country on recruiting these student athletes.
You could probably go into detail all day on this question I'm about to ask, but people hear recruiting coordinator, and I don't know that everybody knows exactly what all that entails as far as like evaluating and scheduling stuff. Just can you kind of give us a quick synopsis of, I guess, describing what your job title is?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically going to be working hand in hand with Michael Musselman and, the other coaches on staff, as well as, other guys in positions to, first recognize the student athletes that we're going after, then, evaluating them, watching film, sending coaches out to watch them in person. And then, come together and meet as a staff so we're all on the same page on what needs that we have and who fits those needs, and then who fits the system that we're trying to play and who can excel at the system, and who are guys that are not system players. And so, I think there's a lot of different titles you can throw at it, and a lot of different responsibilities that I have. But, at the end of the day, we're all working to try to bring the best student athletes on campus, and as well as developing the student athletes that we have at the University of Arkansas right now.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Andrew.
Yeah, Ronnie, I was wondering, I know you've done some radio stuff and you were working at Fayetteville High School. What's your ultimate goal? Do you want to be a college coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think, down the line, I would love to be a college coach. I love the position I am in right now. I loved coaching. I loved coaching at Fayetteville High School. I loved coaching the Woods Elite AAU program. I love buying into student athletes. And from here in this position, I can't necessarily coach on the court, but, the biggest thing for me is, the mentorship, being able to, when the guys are walking off the court, being able to talk to them about stuff I see, or, and they're in the locker room, hey man, you had a phenomenal practice, but I think you might need to do this, this, and this, or this is the approach that you might have to take, in juggling, academics, strength and conditioning, getting your body right and putting the work in on the court. And then one of the areas that is new and it's a great area to everybody is NIL and how to create your own brand and how to maintain that brand and how to branch off and show your true personality and how to get involved in the community. So those are all things that, I'm able to do. But, to answer your question, sooner or later, I do want to, one day be a college coach, but who better to learn from than Coach Musselman and his staff? I mean, those guys literally are phenomenal. I bring my dad up here every once in a while to watch, and we always talk, and he's a mentor of mine, and I always tell him like, hey man, we're running NBA practices every day. Like the way that they're set up each and every day is exactly how I practice in the NBA. And these student athletes are blessed to be able to be under Coach Musselman and as well as other assistants. So it's a great position for me because I'm able to be a sponge and soak up all the knowledge that these guys are putting out every day.
And I know you said earlier that the four-year player isn't, totally extinct, but, with Moody, going to be the first one and done in school history. Does that maybe open doors to other recruits? I mean, how does that help on the recruiting trail to have a guy like that?
Well, I know one thing. I know that's something that other teams can't bash us about. You know, a lot of teams, well, they don't have one and dones, or you can't get drafted from Arkansas if you stay this amount of years. Or there's always negativity that's surrounded in recruiting. That's one thing that we don't do. But what we can do is we can live off facts. And, you know, we did have a guy that was from the state of Arkansas that ended up staying home, going to the University of Arkansas, buying into Coach Musselman's system, buying into everything that we're saying, and now we'll have the opportunity to be one of the top picks in the NBA draft, and not only chase his life but his family's life.
Ty Richardson.
Ronnie, you just mentioned Moses, who's likely going to be a top 15, top 10 draft pick tomorrow night. You also had Bobby Portis win an NBA championship, and really the national brand has grown as of late. How much do you think the Arkansas national brand has grown since you were in school?
It's grown tremendously. Everybody knows about Moses Moody because of the year he had this year in the run that Arkansas had. Everybody's talking about Bobby Portis because of the run that he had with the Milwaukee Bucks, the role he had, and the adversity he's gone through. Everybody knows Pat Beverly because he's a veteran and he gets a lot of pub. But my biggest story that I tell people is Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford came here and developed and went in the league, and he jumped around different places, and he found a home in Washington, and he's playing phenomenal basketball, and he's going to be one of the young superstars in this league for a long time. And so for those guys having success in the league, I think Arkansas's brand is stronger than ever. Joe Johnson was in the league for a long time, all-star. Myself was in the league. Sonny Weems was in the league. Stephen Hill was in the league for a little bit. Dontel Jefferson got in the NBA for a little bit. So the brand is there. You can go back to, the 70s, 80s, and early 90s of guys that have been in the NBA. But right now, I think the brand is super strong. I think that, the mudslinging that goes on in recruiting, you can't do that anymore because, you've got a guy like a Moses Moody. You've got other guys that has went to Arkansas from the state of Arkansas that has success. You had guys that from out of state that came in and had some success and got in there. Isaiah Joe's another big name. Mason Jones worked really hard to get in the league for a little bit. And so the brand is really, really strong, and we're going to build off that brand.
Ronnie, you mentioned runs. Your dad and buddies went on a run in 78. This team went on a run all the way to the Elite Eight, lost to the eventual national champion. How much would it mean to you if you could help put together a team that went on a run to a Final Four national championship?
I mean, I feel like, doing something like that is just as important as winning one as a player. I mean, to me, it's the same hard work and dedication and discipline that it takes to be successful as a player as it is as a coach. And so my job is trying to put together one of the best recruiting classes, the best rosters that we can possibly put together to be very competitive in a very competitive SEC. This is not the days of the SEC where it's like a one or two, trick pony. You know what I'm saying? There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 teams in the SEC that has a really good shot to make it to the NCAA tournament and make a good run in the tournament each and every year. So it would mean a lot to be able to assemble a top recruiting class that eventually goes on to win a national championship. Because I know that is Coach Must's goal. I know that's the players' goal here, and that's for sure a goal of mine.
Nick.
Hey, Ronnie, you mentioned Moses Moody. Just going in as yourself as a first round pick, he's, like you said, projected to be in that lottery conversation. What have you seen just on the sideline watching him throughout this last season that will translate really well into the NBA?
I mean, first of all, he's mature beyond his age. He goes out there and plays at a pace that's comfortable, like within itself. And he's very versatile. He can catch and shoot. He'll put the ball on the floor for the mid range, and can get all the way back to the basket. He's athletic enough to finish at the rim with contact. He's a very savvy, high basketball IQ player. He doesn't force a lot of stuff. He lets the game come to him. And, those are things that translate into the NBA. A lot of people that know the game say that, hey, man, that guy's got a pro game. Like his game is meant for the pros and not for college. Like he's a type of player that kind of similar to Joe Johnson. He might have his best years in the pros opposed to his best years in college. And that's just the type of player I think that Moses is. I think that, he does a lot of things really, really well. And that's one of the things I learned, as a pro is, stick to your strengths, shy away from your weaknesses, and find your niche on what a team needs. And I think that he checks the boxes on a lot of those things. A guy that can knock down shots, he can do that. A guy that can facilitate for others, he can do that. A guy that can, get you a bucket any given time, he can do that. And a guy that is disciplined and hungry enough to defend, that makes you an elite basketball player. And that's, to me, why he's going to get his name called very, very early in the draft.
Curtis?
Hey, Ronnie, you've been able to touch quite a bit on the high school recruiting, but obviously Arkansas has had a lot of success under Musselman in the transfer market. Could you maybe talk a little bit about the approach you guys have in attacking that thing and just the importance of maintaining a presence there?
Man, it's insane. The work that these guys do makes you only work harder. So it's kind of unreal, like in real time, how this stuff works. A transfer portal hits, we all know about it, and we all know top to bottom his front and back story. So, we're working, honestly, 24 hours a day. I mean, there's been times where I get text messages super late. I get text messages super early, around the board on players, high school and grad transfer. So that's one of the things that Coach Musselman has, put a staple on, is having success with grad transfers. And, I don't think that that's something he's going to shy away. But, I think that he's had a great mixture between finding guys, high school student athlete recruits, and a mixture of grad transfers to mesh it together to make a big picture. And we're going to continue to do that.
And then I guess a big part of your job is kind of looking ahead towards the future, but I'm just curious, how's the relationship building going with the current players? And then is there anything that's standing out to you so far about the team you have put together this season?
Well, I'm a pretty, easygoing guy. So, my first day, I introduced myself. I know a lot of the guys because a lot of the guys are from the state, and a lot of, some of the guys had been here. But, the grad transfers are pretty new, and trying to build a relationship with them, and that's the half of it. Like, you've got to build a relationship with your team. You have to have great team chemistry, and you have to have all the guys buy in to what you're trying to do. And I think that across the board we really do. And I know you guys have probably seen a practice, but be able to see a practice every day and the attention to detail, and then have the guys buying in, playing as hard as they possibly can is kind of like, surreal to be able to see it. But, off of that, being able to go out and tell other people about it makes my job easier, because, I can tell these guys, if you have, goals and dreams or admirations of playing at the next level. And this guy was, an NBA head coach, assistant scout. He still has ties with NBA players and coaches and GMs and owners, as well as other guys on his staff. And so, the high school guys is great to be able to say that, but it's also great for the grad transfers, because, when they transfer, yeah, they might be unhappy, but for the most part, they're just trying to better their situation and try to get to the next level.
Thank you.
Scotty? Scotty? I think Scotty is frozen. We'll go Cameron.
Yeah, Ronnie, I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but what are you hoping to gain from this amazing coaching staff?
Knowledge, just like these student athletes, they're seeking our advice about, how to better themselves, how to better their craft. And if you're not a head coach, that's what you should be working on each and every day. How can I be a better person? Can I better my craft? So, I'm going to learn from, Coach Musselman every day. I'm going to learn from Coach Argenal, Coach Mosier, Coach Smart. And like I said, I'm going to be a sponge, and each and every day I'm going to try to pick their brains about something. They're going to get tired of me, but, I talk a lot. I ask a lot of questions, and they'll be very receptive of it. And to me, that only makes your entire staff better. If we're all on the same page, we're all knowledgeable about what's going on. The offense, the full court press, the half court press, the zones, the, baselines out of bounds, and different strategic things that we're trying to accomplish,
I think Ronnie froze up again.
Is it frozen still? If we're all on the same page, it only makes our staff stronger, and it makes our players even stronger. And that's literally my approach every day, is try to learn from everybody else on this staff.
Yeah, Ronnie, I was just asking you about, what you learned, with Coach Stamps, and then on the AAU circuit, just what you can bring from that experience to this new role.
Yeah. I was saying how after every practice, we were telling the kids that we loved them, and we were, building relationships, being personable with them, and showing the student athletes that we really cared about them. It wasn't just we were there to do a job. And, I learned that from Coach Stamps. That's something that we harped on each and every day. We had a lot of kids at Fayetteville High School. And so trying to build a relationship 9th through 12th was tough, but, it's something that he encouraged, and that was, the culture at Fayetteville High School. And so I learned that from him. I learned about, approaching the day every day, to get better every time you step on the court, because, through COVID, it could be taken away at any given time. And so we didn't take it for granted. We attacked the day each and every day. And I carried that over to AAU, and I plan on carrying it over to here at the University of Arkansas, is, building a relationship with these student athletes, and, just encourage them to attack the day and love on these guys as much as I possibly can.
Stuart?
Yeah, Ronnie, I wanted to ask you, when you came to Arkansas, do you feel any pressure following in your dad's footsteps? Sometimes players that do that say there's always kind of a pressure to kind of duplicate what their dad did.
My dad hates when I say this, but I don't think so. When my dad played in the 70s, that was so long ago. The game was completely different. They wore like shorts, and, they didn't have a 3-point line. And so, coming to Arkansas, it was more of a, the state of the Razorbacks weren't in a good place, and I could have went anywhere I wanted to in the country. But I chose to stay home. I chose to put Arkansas back on the map, and, not only play with a chip on my shoulder, but I wanted to represent what was on the front of my jersey as well as on the back. And I didn't feel any additional pressure. I just knew that it was a lot of work that was going to have to be put into it. If I wanted to, I knew I was good at basketball, but I didn't want to be good. I wanted to be elite. And so not only did I want to be elite on the court, I wanted to be elite in the classroom. And so I knew that by doing that, it was going to be a lot of hard work and dedication. And, I wanted to take that challenge. And it wasn't, oh man, people are going to think that my dad's better than me. That never went through my mind. It was more of, let me go out there and show everybody that, you know, the Razorbacks are the real deal and that I put the work in, that I'm the real deal as well.
I'm old enough to remember your dad. You mentioned all those great coaches that you played for. Talk about Jerry Sloan and what you learned from him. I remember when he played for the Bulls back when I was a kid.
And rest in peace to Coach Sloan, man. He's one of my favorite coaches. And, you know, one of the things the first year I came in there, you know, the first thing he said was, man, I really hate you. I hate rookies. I don't think that you deserve to be here. I don't think you deserve to play. And, you know, I thought he was joking at first, but he never cracked a smile after saying that. And so, you know, people know me. I ask a lot of questions. You know, my mom told me, like, a closed mouth didn't get fed. And so I asked a lot of questions. And I was like, well, why do you think that? And he was like, you know, I don't think guys know what it means to put the real work in. And you can say that, you know, when you come into a new job, or, you know, on the basketball side, you know, going from junior high to high school to college to NBA, each level was a difference. And there's a change. And for me, when I got to the NBA, I knew what hard work was, because I that's what I had to do to be elite in college. It's not till you get in the NBA and you're around a lot of elite guys that you know what it is to try to be elite and actually put in the real work. And so I had to change how I prepared, and the hard work that I put in and the attention to detail I had to have to be successful. And that, you know, that's lifting weights before, after practice, getting in conditioning before and after practice, getting up extra shots before and after practice, and then taking time out with your position coach to study the film, not only on the strengths that you have, but the weaknesses, and doing the same thing about your opponents. And so each and every game going in, playing for Coach Sloan, I knew like more about the other team than the other team knew about themselves. And so I you know, that's how I was able to get a lot of steals, you know, watching film and be able to know the plays of the other team. So I love playing for Coach Sloan. He gave me the true meaning of what it actually meant to work hard and be a true professional. And, you know, I owe, for as many years I was in the NBA, strictly to him.
One more from me. I always wanted to ask an NBA player or any player this. How hectic is it when you get traded? I mean, I know it's like a spur of the moment thing. How hectic is that? Do you have any stories?
Oh my gosh. I probably have the most hectic story about being traded. And I think it's funny because it was kind of documented. When I was with the Jazz, and I got traded from the Utah Jazz to Memphis Grizzlies. That particular year, we were coming back from All-Star break. And so I was in Arkansas, and I flew from Arkansas to New Orleans. We played the Hornets down there. That had Chris Paul, and we ended up beating them. And Coach Sloan looked a lot of players in the eye, Carlos Boozer and myself being the main one, because there was trade rumors around both of us. And he told us, hey, guys, y'all need to relax. You know, I know y'all play hard, and, you know, we're all seriousness throughout the, you know, practice, but, you know, you can have some fun. You know, nobody's going to get traded on this team. You know, we're going to have a long run, and we're going to compete to try to win the Western Conference. So we ended up practicing, eating, and then getting on the plane, and we were headed on a West Coast trip where we were going to play, you know, Golden State. We were going to play Portland, and then go back to like a unknown call, a restricted call. And then, you know, obviously I don't answer. I hit decline. I get a call from it again. I don't answer. I hit decline. And then my agent calls me, and he's like, where are you at? And I was like, you know, I'm on the plane. We're about to take off. So doors are closed. And you know how, like, you taxi down the runway and you're about to turn, and they rev up the engine before they're about to, you know, go down fast on the runway. Well, that's what we're doing. We're taxiing down, and we're turning the corner, and they're revving up the engine. We're about to take off. And he was like, you need to get off the plane because you just got traded to the Memphis Grizzlies. And I was like, no way. He's like, unless you want to fly from there to San Francisco, get off the plane, get right back on the plane, fly from San Francisco to Memphis, and you have to go see the doctor, the trainers to get cleared so you can play. Like, you need to get off the plane. So I immediately jumped, was like, hey, you got to stop the flight, stop the flight, stop the flight. And, you know, I was sitting in the front, so I kind of, you know, the pilots are right there, and they're, you know, they kind of look back, and they see my face, how serious I am. And, you know, the players all get up, like, they were in the front of the plane, was like, what's going on? And they stop revving the engine. I walk back to the end of the plane, and I go back to Coach Sloan. And, you know, Coach Sloan gave me some pretty harsh words, like, what the heck's going on? What are you doing? And I was like, Coach Sloan, hey, I really appreciate the opportunity. You know, you trusted me. You had faith in me. You drafted me with the 14th pick. You know, you gave me, you know, 3.5 of the best years I've ever had in my entire life. But, you know, I just got traded to the Memphis Grizzlies. He set out a whole bunch of other cuss words. And I was like, well, you know, I said, at the time, the guy, his name is Brian Zettler. He was an equipment manager and assistant trainer. I was like, BZ, can you please help me get my stuff off the plane? And so we literally, while he got up, we walked off, had to get off the plane, the middle of the runway, get my bags. They sent out a car for me. It was a truck. Threw my bags in the back of the truck. I'm getting text messages from not only the players on the plane, but now it has hit ESPN. And so everybody back home is texting me. My mom and dad are calling me nonstop. My agent's calling me nonstop. And I'm like, you know, everybody on the plane is like, this is not really happening. Like, I was a starting shooting guard on the team at the time. And, you know, it was really, really bad. But at that time, that particular time, 3.5 years in the league, I knew that, you know, the NBA is a true business. It's a true business because, you know, the move didn't help the Jazz out at all, saving money. And then, you know, I ended up not trying to re-sign with them and sign with the Bulls. So kind of the rest is history, but crazy story. But, you know, it's funny that people ask me that because it was a pretty hectic time.